It's not getting easier for Rishi Sunak because now rape allegations against another MP from his Conservative Party are putting British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak under pressure once again. And demands also grew louder within their own ranks to investigate the case more closely. Previously, Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden admitted that the Tories apparently paid for the medical treatment of a woman who reported being raped by a certain man. And Sunak spoke on Monday of very serious allegations and called on those affected to report to the police. The name of the suspect was not immediately known, though. And the case as a whole became known over the weekend. The Mail on Sunday newspaper reported, citing a letter from former Tory General Secretary Jake Berry and former Chief Whip Wendy Morton to the police, that the allegations had been known for years. And former Culture Minister Nadine Dorries also writes about the case in her biography, from which the Mail quoted in advance. Accordingly, there are said to be up to 5 victims. Because there was a failure to take action against the politician, the man was able to commit further crimes. And recently, there have been repeated allegations against Conservative parliamentarians of sexual assault. At the end of October, MP Crispin Blunt was suspended after being temporarily arrested on suspicion of rape. Peter Bone was previously banned from Parliament for 6 weeks. He is said to have exposed himself in front of an employee. And Chris Pincher caused a stir when he groped 2 men while drunk in 2022 and resigned from his mandate a year later. That was the incident that triggered the resignation of then Prime Minister Boris Johnson, by the way. But since the 2019 general election, there have been a number of other cases of MPs being suspended from the House of Commons, most of them Tories. And I got a few examples for you again, and this is important to know what's happening. One was Owen Paterson from the Conservatives. In November 21, Paterson was suspended for 30 days after being found to have broken lobbying rules. Paterson had lobbied on behalf of 2 companies that he was paid to consult for, which is a breach of the House of Commons Code of Conduct. And then we had Neil Parish from the Conservatives. In April 22, Parish resigned from Parliament after admitting to watching pornography on his phone in the House of Commons chamber. Parish had initially denied the allegations, but later admitted to them after being confronted with evidence. And then Chris Pincher we already talked about. In June 22, Pincher resigned from his government position as Deputy Chief Whip after being accused of groping 2 men at a private members' club. Pincher was later suspended from the House of Commons for 8 weeks by the Standards Committee. They are not alone. We also had Margaret Ferrier from the Scottish National Party. In October 23, Ferrier was suspended from the House of Commons for 30 days after being found to have broken COVID lockdown laws. Ferrier had travelled from Scotland to London to attend a vote in the House of Commons, despite knowing that she had tested positive for COVID-19. And in addition to these cases, there have been a number of other MPs who have been suspended from the House of Commons for shorter periods of time or who have been reprimanded by the Speaker. But it's a little bit obvious that there are many Conservatives here. But the suspensions of these MPs have been met with mixed reactions. Some people have argued that the suspensions are too lenient and that the MPs involved should have been expelled from Parliament. And others have argued that the suspensions are fair and proportionate and that they send a strong message that misconduct will not be tolerated. The suspensions of these MPs also highlight the need for reform of the House of Commons disciplinary procedures, as many people say. The current system is widely seen as being complex and ineffective, and there is a growing consensus that it needs to be updated. One example, on October 19th and 23, the House of Commons was due to vote on a motion to suspend Boris Johnson from Parliament for 30 days. The motion had been tabled by the Privileges Committee, which had found that Johnson had lied to the House about his knowledge of parties that had taken place at 10 Downing Street during the COVID lockdown. However, just hours before the vote was due to take place, Johnson announced that he would be resigning as Prime Minister. And this effectively prevented the House of Commons from voting on his suspension. It is unclear whether or not the House of Commons would have voted to suspend Johnson if he had not resigned, but it was quite probable. Some MPs have said that they believe the motion would have passed, while others have said that they are, let's say, not so sure, but I think it would have gone through. And it's also unclear why Johnson decided to resign just before the vote was due to take place. Some people have speculated that he knew he was likely to be suspended and that he resigned in order to avoid this humiliation. Others have speculated that he resigned for other reasons, such as the pressure from within his own party. But whatever the reason, Johnson's resignation prevented the House of Commons from holding him to account for his actions. It also set a dangerous precedent, as it showed that prime ministers can simply resign in order to avoid being held accountable for their misconduct. The intention of the House of Commons to suspend Boris Johnson was to send a strong message that lying to the House is a serious offence. However, Johnson's resignation prevented the House from doing so. And this is a matter of concern, as it shows that prime ministers can feel above the law and that they cannot be held accountable for their actions. The suspension of MPs for misconduct works in a similar way here in our German Bundestag than in the House of Commons in the UK. In both cases, the decision to suspend an MP is ultimately up to the full chamber and is made by a vote of all MPs. But there are some, let's say, key differences between the two systems. In the Bundestag, the decision to suspend an MP must first be recommended by the Committee on Rules and Immunities. This committee is responsible for investigating allegations of misconduct against MPs and for making recommendations to the Bundestag on whether or not to suspend them. The Bundestag can also suspend an MP for a longer period of time than the House of Commons usually does. In the Bundestag, the maximum suspension period is 12 months, while in the House of Commons it's usually 30 days. And another key difference is that the Bundestag has a different system for disciplining MPs for serious misconduct. In the Bundestag, MPs who are found to have engaged in serious misconduct can be expelled from Parliament. And this is a more severe sanction than suspension and is only used in the most serious cases. In the House of Commons, MPs who are found to have engaged in serious misconduct can somehow be expelled from Parliament as well, but this is a very rare occurrence. And more commonly, MPs who are found to have engaged in serious misconduct are just suspended from Parliament or reprimanded by the Speaker. Overall, the systems for suspending MPs for misconduct in the German Bundestag and the UK House of Commons are similar, as I said, but there are really some key differences. The Bundestag has a more robust system for disciplining MPs for serious misconduct, and it can also suspend MPs for a much longer period of time. And if you want to know something else right now, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.